Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This week, get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock with news. China is using the American election distraction to ramp up its pressure on Australia. But first, China has turned in a very strong trade result in October. Exports came in much stronger than the strong result anticipated, and imports came in much softer than anticipated. That means their merchandise trade surplus swelled to $58 billion and far above the $37 billion surplus in September. The merchandise trade surplus with the US was a record high $31.4 billion. With New Zealand, they ran a deficit of $160 million, and with Australia, the deficit was $4.9 billion in the month. China is calling for a virtual summit to get the RCEP free trade agreement agreed before the end of this year. This is a big deal, one that will now include Japan and South Korea along with New Zealand and Australia, but it won't include India anymore. And China's wolf warrior diplomacy is ramping up against Australia. An editorial in the Communist Party newspaper says that Australia will pay tremendously for its misjudgment by staying aligned to the US and daring to criticise China for its security adventures and human rights abuses. Wheat farmers seem to be the next to suffer trade exclusion, and being part of the RCEP is unlikely to deter China when it's in this revenge mood. Meanwhile, the American consumer credit levels bounced back in September after an unusual dip in August. That took the September level back to the same as in March 2020, so there really isn't any material rise there. And staying in the US, October non-farm payrolls rose by 638,000 and mostly more than anticipated. But as we've previously noted, that still leaves a net loss since February of 10 million jobs. The US Treasury 10-year yield will start the week unchanged at 0.82%. And the price of gold has slipped slightly, down $4 from Saturday morning to $1,950 an ounce, but does cement in a big gain over the past week. Oil prices have stayed low over the weekend and are still just on $37.50 a barrel in the US, while the international price is now just over $39.50 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar is little changed this morning at 67.7 US cents, embedding in last week's sharp rise. Against the Australian dollar, we're also little changed at 93.2 Australian cents, and against the euro, we're a tad softer at 57 euro cents. That means our trade-weighted index will start the week at 70.4. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.